Hopefully you can hear me okay. It's a pretty windy, blustery November day out there. And because it's November, it's getting colder. Today isn't so bad, but we're going to be dipping below freezing this week, I'm sure. Anyway, I'm here in my garage again, and I don't have any heat out here, and nor do I have insulation or anything. I'm going to be doing some more stuff out here in the garage. So I got a diesel heater, commonly called as a Chinese diesel heater. I don't know why they're called that, but they're all made in China. This one is the brand name is Lacassi. I'll link it down in the description in case you're interested in checking that out on Amazon. Pretty good deal, I must say. It was $129. By the way, I'm no way sponsored by Lacassi or anybody else here except for the affiliate link I put in the description. So anyway, $129, and I got to tell you, this is a pretty solid build from what I see so far. It's all metal, steel. It's got a solid handle on it. This is the all-in-one unit, all-in-one style unit where it comes in one box. You do have to vent them because, I mean, they burn diesel, so you have to exhaust that out. There's thousands of videos on these things on the internet. In fact, I'm going to link here somewhere. There's a guy that's done all kinds of research into these the last couple of years, and he started out and he had no preconceived notions, and he tried everything, burning waste oil, burning used motor oil, different combinations of that, all the problems he ran into. He rebuilt the first one I don't know how many times. He's got all kinds of videos, and now he's a much better expert, and he has several of these heaters. Anyway, the idea of them is quite simple. It's basically a small oil furnace. It's a small version of your oil furnace that you might have in your house if you ever heated with oil, and it's got its own built-in oil tank for diesel. And I recommend only burning diesel in it. Don't be thinking you're burning waste oil or dirty motor oil. You'll see why if you just look that up. Then they burn it in a chamber here. Hot air blows out the front, exhaust goes out the back. Pretty straightforward. They have a controller here, and it has a remote control. I have just taken this out of the box, so I haven't turned it on. I don't know anything. I don't even know if it's going to work yet. But one of the issues with these is, I'll turn this around so you can see. The good part about this particular model, these all run on 12 volt. And you can get more expensive versions that come with the power adapters and everything else, but generally speaking, that they run on 12 volts. And the intention of these is that they go into a truck cab or a van or something like that, and they run on 12 volts, and you get heat without running your engine all night. This one has good screw terminals on the back too, which was impressive to see. There is another version of these, and I have one, and I will be showing that in an upcoming video. It's what I call the deconstructed version. So it's the actual heater part is its own separate unit. It's got a separate fuel tank, which is much bigger than the fuel tank that comes with this one. But it just doesn't have the steel case. They're a little cheaper, and the reason I have that is I'm going to be putting that in my off-grid cabin as kind of the heat source there. And it's going to be mostly mounted on the outside of the cabin for reasons like carbon monoxide, things like that. And the only thing on the inside is going to be the two vents. One is the bringing the air in, and the other one is putting the warm air out. That's it. And then there's a control. The control on the deconstructed versions, which is this thing, is separate. So I'll mount that inside the cabin on the wall. Anyway, purpose of this video really isn't about the diesel heaters. Like I said, there's thousands of videos on these. All you can look up all the videos you want on them. I think this one's probably going to be okay. I've seen a couple of videos on this particular version, which they've been running for a year or two without issue. So I don't have any issue with the heater itself. It's the 12 volt part. So typically when I've seen videos of these, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll hook it up to a battery, like an old car battery, and then you put the battery on a car charger kind of thing. If you're running in a shop like this, and the idea there is power goes out, the heater's still running, and when you turn these off, they go through a cool down period so they don't burn up all the electronics and everything inside. So you don't want it to suddenly cut the power. The other way I've seen people attempt to run these is take the 12 volts, put it into a cigarette lighter plug, and plug that into a power station. And it doesn't always work. Some I've seen a Bluetti run one. I've seen a couple be successful that way, but typically not. And the problem is that on startup, these run a glow plug to ignite the diesel. And that takes a good, I've seen a couple of videos where you were able to run it under the 10 amps, and I've seen a couple of videos where it ran up to 150 to 200 watts on startup, which is more than 10 amps. The wattage being volt times amp, right? So 12 volt times 10 amp is 120 watts. 10 amps is about all you ever get out of a cigarette lighter plug. That's what they're designed for, is 10 amps. So you might be possible to run one on a cigarette lighter plug, but you're going to use all of it. And I mean all of it. And if you had intentions of running anything else on 12 volt on a power station, good luck, because power stations don't have typically don't have a good 12 volt output capability. They're designed for the inverter part, the 110 volt part. They will have a cigarette lighter plug, but that's usually about it. In my cabin, I'm going to be running 12 volt lighting, and then of course 12 volt heater, and then maybe a couple of other things that run on that. The intention being that the more I can run on 12 volt only, the better off I'm going to be, where I don't need an inverter, because eventually it'll have its own battery. I'm not going to run it on a power station. And if I can run it all on 12 volt, great, perfect. So in the meantime, I do need to run that one in the cabin on a power station as I get things set up and running. And I may want to run it in here during a power outage on a power station, but I can't do that on the lighter plug. I mean, I might be able to, but I'm not going to take the chance of burning up the lighter plug circuit. So you need a 12 volt power supply. You can buy 12 volt regulated power supplies on Amazon for not a lot of money, 30 to 40 bucks, I think, or something like that. But I had an idea, and where I can get power supplies for free. And what I mean by that is that every old junk computer, full tower computer that you see, every regular PC has a power supply. Those power supplies supply 12 volts to the computer. I'll show you the one that I'm going to use as part of an experiment for this. But typically, this is a lower end power supply that I've got here. It came out of a Lenovo machine. They supply 250 watts at 12 volts. So that's more than enough, or should be more than enough, to run one of these. And you can find old junk computers for free anywhere. Like there's all kinds of them. Go to any electronics recycling. Look around in your basement. You probably have one or two, or somebody has a couple of old computers kicking around, and that is a good regulated 12 volt power supply. So there is a supply of them around. They're probably going to be free. So let's get on with, I'll show you what I'm up to with the power supply, and then I'm going to hook this up temporarily. There is a way you need to vent these outside. I'm not going to be doing it for this experiment, just to get it going. I want to see if it works, if my plan here works. But so for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be getting this power supply together and seeing if it'll run this diesel heater. This is what I'm talking about when I say computer power supply. These are mounted in typically the top end of the tower of any PC that you would see. Sometimes these are going to differ in terms of wiring, but essentially they're all the same. So some of them will have a switch on them, which would be handy, but this one does not, so that's okay. The ATX power supplies are going to have slightly different plug to them. I'm going to be hacking this apart anyway, so it doesn't matter. But basically, all of the black wires are your ground. The yellow wires are 12 volt. The blue wire is 5 volt. And the green wire in there is what's connected to the power switch. So the power on circuit. So when you turn on your computer, it's a soft switch. It's not a hard click switch, right? And there's a relay circuit basically inside the computer that will close this to ground and start up the power supply. When you press the button on your computer and you hold it in for a shutdown, that will disconnect this power supply. So I've taken the screws out of this just to show you. So Lenovo conveniently labeled it. And you can see right there, all 3 wires that went to that power supply connector are all soldered together here at the end, and it says plus 12 volt. The green one says PS on, in other words, power supply on. And all of the black wires are also soldered together at the common ground point. So that's all that we care about. We're going to have to do a little testing here before we commit to wiring this to our diesel heater. Okay, I've plugged in the power supply. It's plugged in now. Obviously not running, the fan's not going or anything else. So theoretically, I think if I jumper power supply to, and sure enough, it's on. Or at least the fan came on, so that would indicate to me that it's on. Now if I take that out, it goes off. So that means that you can hook this up to a switch, which I might do. I might have a switch on it to turn on and off. But for now, I want to verify the 12 volts. So there, my power supply is on. So that's ground. And this should be, yep, sure enough, 12 volts. It's hard to see on that meter because it's literally the cheapest meter I could buy probably 10 years ago or something. So my choices are 250 volts or 10 volts, and so it's going to peg 10 volts for sure. But it appears to be 12 volts. I just wanted to show you something else here. I'm going to turn it off, unplug it, put it back together so I don't electrocute myself. But on the side of it, So let that be a lesson to everybody. I just electrocuted myself, even though I had it turned off. I grabbed where I shouldn't have grabbed, and yeah, it was energized still, even though it was unplugged. In case you missed it, I just zapped myself, and I'll show you how. Yeah, great big capacitor there. Well, when I was turning it around in my hands with this open, that discharged into me. So that wasn't fun. Anyway, I did want to show you this. Um, you can see that. You can see it's 17 amps on one circuit, 15 amps on the other circuit of the 12 volt, total 250 watts. So that should be lots. I mean, that's, 32 amps, which is 3 times as much as a cigarette lighter plug. Well, as a result of me being stupid and grabbing this where I shouldn't have, and having the capacitor discharge into my hand, and me screaming like a little girl and dropping this on the ground, I was hoping it was still going to work. So I kind of put it all back together, and I even had my switch wired up, but nothing. It's dead. So I broke it. So I had to find another one. But in the meantime, I have this hooked up old school. So I have it hooked up to a car battery that's on a car charger. And when I did that, it came on and it shows me 12 volts. So apparently the first thing you got to do is prime it. So I must be doing the priming thing. And turn it on. And we'll see how it works. We can hear the fan start to wind up now. Pump is going. I can hear stuff coming out the exhaust. Oh yes, I can smell the diesel. So pretty simple. I didn't do anything I didn't really do a lot to get this thing going. I really just took it out of the box. I put on the exhaust pipe and hooked it up to some power and put some diesel in it. That's it. Obviously, I need a much better, more permanent installation. Oh yeah, it's warming up now. Oh yeah. This should have no trouble to heat my garage here. Boy, that really fires out the heat. Well, I guess stay tuned for a more permanent installation of this thing. So far, color me impressed. Okay, I'm back to my diesel heater installation. It's about a week later after I blew up the computer power supply that I was attempting to use to power the diesel heater on 12 volts. Well, I didn't blow it up. I was turning it over and I electrocuted I grabbed the capacitor. I had the case off the power supply. I had it unplugged, as you saw, and I inadvertently touched the leads on the big capacitor that's inside the power supply and sent a shock through me. And as a result, I ended up dropping the power supply and it landed on my cement floor. and no longer works. I put it back together, tried it, but it still doesn't work. I have picked up another computer power supply, and I will be making an attempt at that. But I also, in the meantime, bought it's just a 12-volt power supply on Amazon. I think they're like 20 or 25 bucks or something like that. I think it's important you make sure you get the 250 watt one and not the 150 watt one. Some of these are used for, they might say LED driver or something like that. But I believe 250 watt is probably what you're going to need, because you might go past 150. And to be honest with you, these cheap power supplies that you get on Amazon are a little sketchy unto themselves. Like they're not like, you know, there are zero instructions, there are nothing else. But I have seen other people use them with these diesel heaters. So that's what I'm going to be doing for now. I am going to get that other power supply going as well, because I got two of these heaters to put in. I got this one here in this garage, and I have my cabin where I'm putting the external. It's a little bit more complicated of a build. Hopefully I can get that done next weekend, because I want to get going on doing stuff on the inside. I don't know if you can see my breath here. No, not yet, but it's getting cold. It snowed. It's below freezing. So that's the time of year we're in now. So I wanted a little bit of heat here in this garage, because this is where I tend to shoot videos for one thing, but I do a bunch of other stuff in here. I do anything but park a car in it, right? So anyway, I'll show you what I have here to set up for the diesel heater. So very simply, this is this particular diesel heater, the Lucasi, and I did a test run. It seemed to work great. So what I've done is I've actually just screwed into some 2x6s going that way, all the way to the end, and I've got the exhaust on it. And this one actually has a nice hole on the back to provide a little extra support for the exhaust. But what I'm going to do, the computer that I scrapped for this latest power supply also has there was a fan on the case. It's a 12-volt fan. And so my intention here is I'm going to put that like that. And I'm going to hook it up to the 12-volt leads here. And the point to this is it's not going to move a huge amount of air, but it's going to blow enough air underneath the unit and kind of provide a little extra cooling for that pipe, but also move a little bit of the heat from the exhaust out into the room. Where I am putting this thing, I cut a hole in the wall, and I screwed in some metal on the outside, and I just right at the moment I've just stuck the muffler for the heater right there. It should all fit together. I'm hoping that's enough clearance. I think it should be. And so very simple. It's just it just goes straight out the wall there, and should work out well. This is the power supply I'm talking about. So these are 20 or 25 bucks or something like that on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description of this video too of this, in case you want to do this, and not go with the computer power supply. I'm still going to attempt the computer power supply. The computer power supply I got out of the computer that was scrapped, that was free, is actually a much more powerful one than this. It's supposed to be a 600 watt, this one. The last one that I zapped myself on was a 250 watt, but this one is a 600 watt and has a bigger fan and whatnot. Not that it matters. I mean, that's lots of power. But for the time being, I want to get this going because, like I said, it's getting cold anyway. And I will hack that other one apart and get that one working as well. And if that works out well, the other good part about the power supply I took out of the computer that this does not have is it has a switch. I'll show you. So this is the power supply that I'm going to get going. As a 12 volt, but it has a switch on the back too. They commonly do. And it has a nice big fan on it. And like I said, it's a 600 watt. And it's easy to find all of the details of these online. My camera to focus there. So you can see 18 amp, 18 amp, 15 amp. So 3 rails, they call them. And then there's a plus 5 volt, which I won't use. So yeah, so this is a it's a much more heavy duty one than that $20 one, but it's going to require a little bit of tinkering for me to get it going as I want it to. But for now, the other one's a little bit more compact, and it might work out well for maybe the cabin, if not for here. We'll see. So on these computer fans, there's this particular one anyway has 3 wires. I believe that the red and black are the 12 volt. The white is like a sensor wire or something like that. Tells the computer when the fan is running. So I'm not going to worry about that one. And these are marked plus and minus. So presumably I can touch these and it'll run. Just put that up there. And we'll see what happens. Yep. So that'll work great. Okay, so I've got it wired up, and in the exhaust there, I didn't put the clamp on the exhaust because, I mean, it's not going anywhere anyway. And I'll tidy this up a little bit more after I get it going. And I'm not running any of the ducts or the extra stuff that came with it. In this case, this should do me. Anyway, we're going to plug it in and see what happens. Here goes nothing. I mean, it did work before, so got a little bit of diesel in it, so that came on. The computer fan thing is running. It says 12V. Apparently you can turn these up. There's an adjuster thing. Oh yeah, I can hear it speed up there. Apparently they work better on a little bit more voltage, so I got 14 there. So let's see what happens. Oh, I gotta hold it in. Glow plug is on. Pump just started. I hear like fire. So here we are back up and running. I'm quite impressed, I got to tell you. So this is what it is. And I will link this, as I said, in the description. It was $129, and it's warming up the garage quite nicely, I got to say. A little bit noisy, but yeah, I mean, I'm not, it's not a furnace in my house. It's meant for the garage. And I will get back to the using a computer power supply to power one of these. You do need a bit of power on the startup, but when they're running, they're only like 20 watts, and that's why you can't really use a lighter plug like in an EcoFlow or like any power station, because those are limited to 120 watts, 10 amps basically. So currently, I did get that other power supply, and that's what's running this, and I turned it up to 14 volts. Seemed to be working wonderfully, and I have it mounted up here now, so it's out of the way, protected. I had an old shelf that I stuck in there to hold stuff that I had to move out of the way to put this in. But down here is the exhaust, and I'm going to turn this on thermal so you can see it. On the outside, that's what it is. So it's a piece of metal that I had that I screwed in, and we turned on and I have a hole cut in the wall and muffler there, and yeah, it's nice and warm. I'm going to show you the thermal of what this looks like. And that computer fan, by the way, that I screwed in underneath here is working quite well too. So I can feel air. It's not like hot air coming out, but it's air moving, so it's keeping the exhaust cool, recovering any heat from there, and just making sure that things are good.